Marianne Polly Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Kate Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. All of these 5 women have one horrific thing in common. They were all brutally murdered by the same man. Now, their names might be unfamiliar to you, but the man who murdered them, who took their lives, I guarantee probably isn't. And that is Jack the Ripper. Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel, and in this video I am reviewing Hallie Rubenhold's The Five, The Lives of Jack the Ripper's Woman. Now, I am no ripperologist or ripper expert by any means. I've seen a few documentaries, I've never read any books. I've also seen, I think, one movie, I think it's that Johnny Depp one from Hell. But, you know, just sort of living in the sort of Western world and, you know, stuff like that, I know that Jack the Ripper is probably one of the most famous serial killers of all time. And I believe a big part of that is because he was never caught. We do not know the man's identity. And tons of books and thousands, if not millions of trees have died and are entirely devoted to trying to figure out who this mysterious, brutal psychopath was. However, in this book, Hallie Rubenhold's The Five, it is somewhat different in that Jack the Ripper is a sort of, I don't want to say a looming presence in the book, but he is a little bit the elephant in the room, because this book is all about his victims. We all know, unfortunately, what happened to them. We all know the end of their story, whether it be through seeing those horrific autopsy photos, which to this day I can't look at. Don't show me them, I will not look at them. Or like through reading about Jack the Ripper, or watching documentaries or so on. But until I read this book, I, and probably a lot of people, had no idea what their lives were beforehand. You know, what sort of unfortunately brought them to that place where they crossed paths with this horrific monster. And so I feel that Rubenhold's book, The Five, really fills a gap in that knowledge. I found out so many things about these women, and also I found out a lot actually about the context in which they lived in late Victorian, mid to late Victorian London. All of these women weren't actually from the East End of London. Some of them were from London. Elizabeth Stride, amazingly, was from Sweden. I didn't know that. But through misfortune, bad luck, bad choices, they all ended up in that spot where they met their end. And also, one thing I found out through this book is the common sort of narrative that these 5 women, the canonical 5, they call it that because some people speculate that Jack the Ripper may have killed other victims, which is entirely possible, in my opinion. We've all heard the narrative that there were 5 very unlucky prostitutes. Actually, only 2 of them, I think it was 2 of them, were prostitutes. The last one, Mary Jane Kelly, was a working sex worker. But the other 4, they can be more poorly characterized as homeless women rather than prostitutes. And that is one of the most, for me, heartbreaking aspects of this book is to find out their stories. All of them were born into working class backgrounds, except for Mary Jane Kelly. There's not really that much that is known about her early life. But anyway, all of them were born into families, working class, struggling, but, they got by. All of them, except for Mary Jane Kelly, got married. Some of them, especially ones like Annie Chapman and Polly Nichols, seem to be, progressing up the class ladder, very slowly, but they seem to be progressing up the class ladder. They had children, and just through different unfortunate events that happened in their lives, they all ended up basically at the bottom of the heap in society. Homeless, without their husbands, without their children, without any real means of support. In Whitechapel, one of the worst areas that you could be in 1888 London. Hallie Rubenhold notes these women were born with a mark against them. They started off in deficit because they were working class and they were women. And, lives for working class people was terrible, precarious, and lives for working class women was double, triple, if not quadruple that. And women, but also, I guess, additionally, women had the whole moral expectation put on them. If you had sex outside of marriage, you were basically considered a prostitute and a fallen woman. Most of these women, and most of these 5 women, struggled with alcohol. That was considered a moral failing instead of a disease, which we know now that it is. And so it would just be really, really hard and horrible, I think, to be a woman in late Victorian London. I really, really like this book. As I said, I'm not a big Ripper expert by any means, and I've never read a book about the Ripper, and I probably don't really intend to. I'm so glad I read this book. It is a great social history. I think it would be a great book even if you took the whole, say, Ripper crimes out of it. It's a great, as I said, social history, looking at the lives of working class women through these 5 women. Rubenhold writes in a really sort of accessible, engaging way, and she weaves in stories from their lives, but also some more contextual sources, newspaper articles. Talks a lot about social reformers at the time, such as Henry Mayhew and William Booth from the Salvation Army. And she really takes us into a world that really makes me extremely grateful for living in the 21st century. Don't get me wrong, we have a lot of problems. Yep, and on that note, I will see you next week, and see you later.